Hey, this is Mike. Welcome to Selenium Automation User Group. I'm here with Andy today. We're going to talk about Selenium and BDD and what Andy's up to, maybe a little bit of Cycle Labs and everything in that whole world. So, how you doing, Andy?
I'm doing awesome. How are you, Mike?
I'm okay, man. Thanks for asking. So, I did see. I saw your post the other day on is BDD dying? Uh, and I thought that was a really good topic. It was, I remember back in a number of QA management led positions that I've had where we were always driving towards an easier process and a simple process for QA, and BDD was always in that discussion. Sometimes
Mm.
we migrated to it, sometimes we had problems migrating to it. Um, but I thought it was really neat, man. So, what have you been up to?
Yeah. Man, so currently I am a product manager at a testing company called Cycle Labs, located in my hometown of Raleigh, North Carolina. We build test automation for enterprise systems, most notably warehouse management, but also hopefully branching out into some other areas. This past year, I've had some good speaking engagements already. Back in January, I spoke at Code Mash, which is really cool. I gave a workshop on Playwright. I gave my favorite talk, Making Great Waves, where I compare QA work to Japanese art. Most recently, I was in the Netherlands, of all places, hence the article you mentioned. I gave the closing keynote at Test Automation Days Netherlands. Is BDD dying? Oh, we're going to get into that soon. But yeah, that's
So,
I've been working on my cars, playing with my dog.
yeah, do you
That's what's
still
up.
have was it a VW
Yes, yes.
that
So
you
I
had?
have a 1970 Volkswagen Beetle, which
Okay.
currently is out of commission because I believe I have blown a transmission fork, sadly. But
Wow.
I also have a 1974 Carmen Ghia convertible.
Yeah, I think it was a Karma that I
Yes.
saw that looked really awesome, man. So I'm a big
Thank
car
you.
buff, right? Not as
Oh, look at
much
that.
on the VW side,
V
but
Dubs are quirky.
but um but yeah, that was a pretty neat looking car, man.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
how's the Beetle keeping up? Did you have you had a lot of work on it done?
I've done the work on it. I have tried to find people to work on it. They don't exist in my area. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just in short, I swapped the engine. I did a full interior gut and restoration. Everything straight down to the metal, carpets, upholstery, everything. I put in a very sweet sound system. Gosh, I redid the front, or I did brake job recently. Um, so yeah, like that's
Did you buy it with a lot of rust on it and had to
no,
replace
actually
panels and stuff?
the body was in really good shape.
Okay. Well,
There
that's
really wasn't much rust at
well, you're
all.
not too far up north where you get a lot of salt on the
Correct.
roads, I guess. So
Correct. Yeah,
I
we're
guess that
we're
would make
fine in North Carolina. Yeah, my Carmen Ghia, opposite story. There's a lot of rust in that one,
yeah.
but I do
So
what I can to mitigate.
are you shipping it off to replace panels or just kind
No,
of living through it?
living through it right now.
Okay. I saw your post and I saw Marcel's. Marcel's got an interesting product too.
Oh yeah,
The
whoopee.
Whoopee.ai, and I haven't got my hands on it, so I haven't had to actually, or haven't had the chance to actually play with it myself to see
Hmm.
how well it works. But it looks interesting, man. I've seen all his videos on it. I've seen all
Hmm.
his talks. It was good to see your reflection on it as well. So that makes a big difference, man. So cool. Cool. Yeah. So as it relates to BDD, man,
Hmm.
uh, why do you think it's dying?
Ooh.
Do you think it's dead?
I don't think it's dead. I think unless there is some unless there are some major changes, I think it could be dying.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is if we look at the history of where it has come from, where it has gone, with a critical eye, it yeah, like I feel like the movement has stalled.
Yeah,
So
well,
if
I mean, that's understandable, right? It started
mm-hmm,
out as a process,
mm-hmm,
and how do we align product or and dev and test
mm-hmm,
and through this one cohesive end-to-end talking language.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And then it really became more of how do we make it a test automation tool
mm-hmm,
that has a codeless type of aspect to
mm-hmm,
it.
mm-hmm,
um, and so yeah, in my opinion, it sort of that process got neglected,
mm-hmm.
and the automation tooling aspect took over.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
and then you started running into other things that like low code automation tools
Mm-hmm,
that hinged upon the whole basis of what the QA group sort of morphed it into, right?
mm-hmm,
And like maybe when you started, you might have had Tricentis, you might have had Tosca out there. That was
mm-hmm.
a low code tool, but it was you're still spending 12 grand on Tosca. Nobody wanted to pay any of that, right?
No.
But these days you have low cost automation tools out there,
Mm-hmm,
Mabel, Testem, Functionize. I'm not going to name the other ones, but but you have those low cost automation tools out there that you can get into affordably, right, and
mm-hmm,
not have to pay $12,000 a license or anything like that.
mm-hmm,
So I could see how it morphed and sort of how it's going on the trajectory, I guess you could say that it is.
mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I strongly believe that the principles behind BDD are absolutely valid still today, because they address more of the human problems, not so much the tech problems. How do we collaborate? How do we communicate? How do we produce artifacts of our development process that can help us move forward in building behaviors of high quality and high value, right? Um, though that more than ever is important to this day. That hasn't changed. But where, like you said, where BDD tooling initially went, it went very quickly into test automation, which um, might seem like kind of strange at first, but we have to remember where it came from. BDD came out of the shortcomings and limitations of test-driven development, TDD, and which then came, going back further into history, came out of the whole 1990s object-oriented hangover, extreme programming, trying to have what eventually became agile, all those kinds of things. Where in the 90s, most of software engineering development was focused on things like design patterns, things like how can we do everything we can in code. Hence, you had unit testing frameworks come out, right? You have the Gang of Four design patterns. You have S unit, J unit, N unit, all these units. Um, into the thousands, then there was kind of BDD was kind of this wake up moment of, oh shoot, it's not all about code. what really matters is the business value, the features we're trying to build, the behaviors. So if we focus on the behaviors in our development and we drive towards that because acronyms are catchy, then and so that's with that kind of mindset, I think naturally the first tooling was for test automation frameworks to say, hey, we can write our specs in this domain or this business oriented language, and we'll call it Gherkin because I don't know, vegetables are cool, right? So you can write that in its plain language, everybody understands it. Then we can take that spec and automate it into living doc. And that was like, oh, that's cool. It was a natural progression from the history, and it was an easy enough thing to build in tooling. And like you said, the tooling went very much in the automation direction, but not in the collaboration direction.
Yeah,
And I maintain that to this day, nobody has really built meaningful tooling for the collaboration side, for the collaboration practices.
the end to
Um,
end, more of an end to end
yep,
format, right?
Yeah, because people have had these one-off things here and there. Like I've
Yep.
seen example mapping boards. you know, um, there was that whole Cucumber Studio thing, which I mean that they didn't really nail it. I don't think it was just kind of like glorified feature files, and it's like well, I don't need a special web form. I need tools to actually help me carry through the process. And like you said, there's nothing to carry you from inspiration to implementation.
It's a
Right?
good way
There's
to word
nothing
that. Yeah.
carrying you through. This is the discovery phase. This is the formulation phase. This is the automation phase. All
Yep.
we had was automation phase. It's like, you know,
Yep.
and
And to be
and
clear, there's still a lot of automation and people using it like
oh
that.
yeah,
I'm not trying to paint a picture that it really has died. If you look at an enterprise space, there's a lot of enterprises looking at it. Every time I poll the Selenium group, at least 25 to 30% say that they're doing a BDD implementation. Holy
oh yeah,
cow, right?
yeah.
Of all
Like
the things that you can do, that's what you're doing.
it's like
Even,
COBOL, man.
yeah,
There will be cucumber tests running after all of us are long retired.
yeah, even when I was at Catalan and I surveyed the same group at Catalan, different product, right?
hmm
Same percentages applied. Actually, it was a little higher even with
Yeah,
Catalan.
yeah,
So there's still a lot of people using it. It's still really active and
yeah.
uh, in very high profile in the enterprise space, mostly in the enterprise
hmm
space.
Yeah,
So
and straight up, like I have no problem with using a BDD test framework. I love it. I think it has some very distinct advantages that regular traditional test automation frameworks don't have. Even if you're not doing the other BDD practices, I think it's still valuable to use a BDD test framework in many cases. And I think the reason why, like you said, about a quarter of all people are entrenched in this, um, because a lot of testers and automationeers saw that value in it. They're like, oh, I can think before I code. I can have this extra layer that handles my test case and have the test code separate from that, but connected. That I can reuse my steps. That ultimately I can have this domain specific language for testing. I mean,
yeah,
Gherkin has become lingua franca for testing. Like you
yeah,
look at even in 2025, like all these AI driven tools that help you formulate and all this stuff, all of them you when they say like you have plain language steps, they all write them in Gherkin, all of them. So it's like even divorced from your traditional BDD framework, Gherkin lives on, and that's probably one of the greatest contributions to testing that we have because given when then framing, it follows a range active cert pattern is brilliant. It's simple. It's awesome, right?
so
But
do you,
go
do you
ahead.
think
Sorry.
the biggest so it sounds like one of the biggest obstacles has been sort of transforming the business to be able to use that?
I would think so, because with the pigeonholing or with the primary tooling being test automation, BDD got pigeonholed as a tester's thing,
Yeah,
right? When it was supposed to be cross role collaboration, biz dev test, and whoever else all together. The plain language was for anybody to be able to read and understand and have living documentation. It was meant to foster collaborative practice, but unfortunately, a lot of times that just didn't happen, right? And my hypothesis on that is that it was because there was a lack of good collaborative tooling that was integrated,
yeah,
right? Because the collaborative stuff was left up to practice. If you look at people, process, product, right? We had product for automation. We were relying on people and process for the collaboration. And it's like, oh, well, it wasn't sticky. Cucumber will keep running after we're all long and gone, but who's going to be doing example mapping? I don't know. Why? There's nothing to help people do that, you know. And so it like if that tooling were co-equal and were pulled off right, then I think BDD would have had a different uh, impression upon people. I think it would be much more widely adopted, almost to the point of agile, even
yeah.
potentially. But it just never manifested that way. And it was always this, I don't want to say niche thing, but it was this side thing, extra thing that people either absolutely loved or absolutely hated.
So is this your play for VC funding, Andy?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, if I can say at Cycle Labs, we very much still believe in a behavior driven mindset, right? That that it's not so much about following these precise rules, but rather being minded towards putting behaviors first, seeing these collaborative and automated practices, following the path from inspiration to implementation of discovery, formulation, automation. And we are actively productizing these things to provide better tooling for helping you and your team do better testing and ensure higher quality, right? So like we believe in these ideas,
Yeah.
and we are thinking like, hey, where have the weaknesses been in this movement, and how can we help do this better so that BDD is not dying, but rather we can say, much like we say we do agile, we do DevOps, hey, we do behavior.
Yep. So Cycle Labs is just for supply chain. What
Uh,
what is what is that again, Andy?
sure. So what is supply chain or what is Cycle Labs?
What is Cycle Labs, right?
Sure. So Cycle Labs, we are a test automation company, or I shouldn't say test automation company. We are an enterprise software testing company. What we provide is a platform for enterprise level testing. When I say enterprise, what I mean is um, where there are these large systems that people are not building entirely themselves, but rather plugging into and configuring and building their workflows in that. So a good example that most people would think would be like Salesforce, right? Salesforce is an enterprise platform for CRM. And so what you do is when your company has Salesforce, you go in there and set up your whole CRM in Salesforce. And so there's like Salesforce for CRM, there's SAP for like ERP, you've got Workday, you've got Oracle. So we focus primarily on the supply chain space. So warehouse management systems.
Okay.
A couple of these examples: Blue Yonder, Manhattan, Kerber, these kinds of things. And so these are big enterprise systems. They have web components, they have API components, they even have terminals. you know,
Yeah.
some of the systems are very new, some of the systems are very, very, very old. And the challenge with supply chain testing is not, oh, I have this little web app, how do I make sure I have a good testing strategy for functional and performance, but rather, hey, I've got a warehouse in Raleigh, North Carolina, I got another one in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I've got another one in Alpharetta, Georgia. They're mostly similar, but of course there's special snowflake configurations for each. And I need to make sure that this pallet of candy bars doesn't melt on the way of the pallet with the scanning of the license plates, that it ends up in these particular spots in the warehouse and I can ship it out on trucks. I can receive and ship and all this kind of stuff, right? So you have, like I said, you have people at desks working web apps, you've got APIs flying, you've got people in these actual warehouses running together with robots and hand scanners and even now mobile apps on their iPhone scanning and making sure that all the candy bars are
Yeah.
are cycling around on the pallets and the pushers and stuff, right? That's the challenge. So it really is an end-to-end enterprise system. How do you test that? And so the cycle testing platform is geared towards that.
Yep. It sounds like a fun platform to be testing. Is you got scanners, so hardware involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was at dairy.com, and dairy.com was supply chain for the
Oh,
milk industry, obviously,
sure.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it was from farm to grocery store, basically, right?
Mm,
But they go pick it up at the farm, put it in the truck. How's it look at the truck, right? Coming into the plant, they have to test it. You have to keep it cold the whole time, right?
mm-hmm.
You have to monitor it really well, and how you distribute it out to the grocery stores or package it, basically, right?
Mm.
So yeah, and your WMS is even much more complicated because it's much more productized, I guess you could say. But
Yeah, exactly.
but
Because yeah, these enterprise platforms, the idea is, hey, whatever you're shipping, candy bars, video games, milk and dairy, like you can customize the system however you need. And it's the complexity comes in that because it's like, okay, well, you're not testing to make sure when you click this button something fires. You're testing to make sure that your processes in these systems for how you manage all this inventory are working correctly. Bam. Maybe you should
and
test that.
do you see? I guess you're in your implementations, you see BDD used often
Ah,
in these
so
shops or not? Or is it still around
most
20 to 30%? Or is
well,
it a,
actually, most of the customers and partners we work with, not all, but many of them, historically speaking, they don't even identify as software people. They don't identify themselves as a developer or a tester. They see themselves as very much in their business, right? If they're pushing candy bars, they're in the candy bar business. If they're, you know, pushing milk, they're in the dairy business, and they happen to have inventory that they need to keep in warehouses. And oh shit, we need to make sure that all those systems are protected so they don't melt or spoil or go somewhere they shouldn't, right? And so like they're not even a point. If you were to ask them like, do you do a BDD process or not, they'd be like, what are you talking about? You
yeah.
know, some customers, to be fair, are more advanced. They actually have teams of like SDETs who would go and use Cycle to build their automated tests at a higher scale. So we get a full spread, but I would say like it's not that the customers and partners that we're working with do BDD already. It's not that they're asking to do BDD. Rather, they're coming to Cycle Labs and saying, "We need help. We need help with making sure our systems work, with testing this, and to have the protection of fast feedback and the continuous testing to make sure when we make changes to our system that it's all good." And we're going to them and saying, "Great, we're here to help. We're happy to help. Here's our testing platform, and here are the principles that we have put into it."
Yeah, this is your recommendation, right? Your
Yep, yep,
philosophy of your methods that you use, right?
yep. And I wouldn't even say that Cycle Labs is like pure BDD stuff. We tend to describe ourselves as behavior oriented or behavior minded, right? We're not trying to advocate that you must go through example mapping and you must write the most perfect Gherkin and all. That's not what we're about. But rather, we're saying we're inspired by these principles, and we are baking these opinions into how we build our testing platform. Because ultimately, whether you use these fancy words and these acronyms and call it this, whether or not you do that, you still got to do all these kinds of things that the process outlines for you, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we are approaching it. So it's like I'm not going to go say Cycle's a BDD tool, but what I will say is that it is very much favorable towards a behavior driven mindset.
Do you think Gherkin itself is a reason why people have kind of gotten hung up on BDD?
I think so. I think
Like it's kind of confusing. It's not real
mm,
English, you know?
yeah. I mean,
So
there's
I could see a
two.
product manager saying, "Look, I just want to write this requirement on what it does or something," right?
Yeah. No, I think there are two hangups people have had with Gherkin. One is the challenges with using it as a semi English language. People get hung up on I need to write it perfectly, and even I was that way for a long while earlier in my career.
Totally
When I
understandable, right?
Yep, but I mean but yeah, people will be like, oh, I have to have perfect syntax, and I've got to write these steps right. And at this point, I'm kind of like, look, when you're in a collaboration session, before you are trying to automate this, even just talking it out, don't worry about your punctuation. Don't worry about syntactically perfect. What you need is you need scenario and given when then. If you can get that, anything else goes. You can wordsmith it later. And so to get people over that hump to realize given when then is meant to structure it as a range act assert. Given I set up my system, when I take an action, then I verify an outcome. Given when then. That's the golden formula. Get that, you're good. Right? Because what we find if you don't have those guardrails is that people will test more than one behavior at a time. And that's when things get complicated and bad and icky and confusing and the vectors fly. And it's like, no, we're trying to avoid that problem. Hence, given when then. Um,
Keeping it simple like that,
mhm.
I think is easy to understand. But
Yes. And that's what people got to get.
Gherkinizing
Hmm.
everything is people just start to distance. I've seen people
Yeah.
start,
Yeah.
especially non-technical people,
Yeah.
start to sort of distance. You know?
And I think that's a shame because I find Gherkin to be very helpful for keeping people focused. because you need a little bit of structure to your language. Because I mean, the opposite is completely free form, where all of a sudden your acceptance criteria is like 72 bullet points, and you're like, what?
But
you know.
you would know as well if you're going in front of all of your clients and you're saying, hey, our playbook is BDD, or the one we would recommend, and
Mm-hmm.
the folks that you're talking to are non-technical, they're either very accepting of it, right, or
Mm-hmm.
you get that friction,
Yeah. Yeah.
which turns them off. But it sounds like they've been very accepting of it so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
So
Yes, indeed. And I would even say to the friction you mentioned with Gherkin, if you frame it reasonably well given when then, and you do that for all the behaviors and examples you're trying to map out, what you reveal in your design time and your planning time is the total cost of ownership of a feature, right? I mean, people sometimes they think something that they're going to build is simple and straightforward, and they're like, well, yeah, because they have that preconception in their mind. It's like, of course it's going to be fast, it's going to be easy. But when you start to unpack and you start to define these things and spec them out, using Gherkin as a tool like that, you start to find, oh geez, as you uncover these edge cases, as you have conversations and discover things that you didn't think about before, um, and as you start to write additional scenarios and additional steps, you start to see, oh, there's a lot more here than I first thought maybe. And so some people don't like that friction in the process, but I think that is important because that's immediate feedback to say, hey, this is what it's going to cost to build this thing
yeah,
right? And it's out there. Like you have the artifact, you have the evidence, you have the plan, you have the size, right? I mean, gosh, like I've railed on this. Sorry for another tangent here, but like we spend like in traditional agile scrum, you spend so much time in planning poker, guessing the size of a thing.
hmm
Just do BDD example mapping, write out all of your Gherkin scenarios, and boom. What if the sizing is actually the number of scenarios you have for a feature? Done. Because instead of guessing, you're actually planning.
yeah. The whole agile is a whole nother, and sprints. I mean, that's a whole nother cluster of
Ain't
a
that the truth?
discussion, right? And then management coming on. I mean, it was never agile was never meant to be this reamed out thing. It was just like everything meant to just be a collaborative session on
Mm-hmm.
getting work done, and then it became over management ized
Mm-hmm.
and it became a productivity tool more than anything else, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
not being productive enough, right? And measuring productivity. So it's been yeah, that's a whole different. but
Oh, it hurts so bad, but it's so true.
but yeah, all right, man. So what's Andy up to this year? I saw that you're doing a conference in Texas again.
Yes, yes.
I saw
So,
that I saw that post today.
indeed. So, in terms of where to find Pandy Night in the world, I'll be in Austin, Texas, in mid April for Pi Texas, which is it's probably now my favorite Python conference in the world. I absolutely treasure my time in Pi Texas. I've got some very good friends there. One of my best friends in tech, Mason Egger, awesome dude. He runs the conference. He's Pi Texas president, and so it's part of it is like, hey, I get to go spend time with him and some of my other friends, but also it's just a very well run regional conference. It's 2 days on a weekend plus an extra day on Friday for tutorials. Um, good size group. It's I think last year attendance was like 250 or something. So
Yeah.
it's big enough to feel like you're part of something, but small enough that you can actually have good one-on-one conversations, meet new people,
And
and
it's
it's
small enough that it's not like over commercialized,
yeah,
right?
and it's completely community driven. Like I
Yeah.
don't even remember. I think they only had like one or two sponsors last year or something. Maybe I
Yeah.
could be wrong. I might not be remembering right, but it's primarily for the community by the community, as many Python events are. And I mean, I cut my teeth speaking on the Python circuit. That's the origins of my speaking days. And
Yeah, it's good
I
to see you're still into Python, man.
I
That you
love it. I
haven't.
mean, I don't do as much with Python these days. I don't go to as many of the Python events as I used to these
Yeah.
days. But I mean, every year on the calendar, I make sure if there's one Python event I go to, it's PyTexas, hands down. And so for anybody out there who likes Python, who likes like creative programming stuff, learning new things, meeting awesome people, come to PyTexas. It's worth it.
No, that's a great conference, and yeah, I may even go. It's in
Heck
Austin. It's
yes.
not that far.
Yeah, it's at the Central Library downtown Austin. I try to find a hotel within walking distance, so it's just I'm in that downtown
Yeah,
Austin bubble the whole time. Get me
Austin
some
Sixth Street's
Whataburger.
a neat place to hang out anyway. Right
Oh yeah,
after,
oh yeah.
plus Rogan. I don't know if you've ever been to Rogan's comedy club, but his comedy club's in downtown
Really
Austin too. That's kind of
nice,
neat too.
cool.
But yeah, I would encourage people to check that out. Uh, it's it's ironic. I didn't get to go to the Selenium conference this year, which is tomorrow. It'll be
Mm,
by the time this comes out, it'll be done. But
mm,
uh, and I,
sure.
I guess obviously you didn't get to go either.
Nah, I've got to be very picky with my travel these days
Yeah,
because like I'm not in DevRel anymore. I don't have this expense account and this expectation to go speak at all the
yeah.
places in the world.
You're not doing
So
40 conferences a year anymore, Andy.
oh my goodness, no, it was too much. I mean, for 2023, I had 65 speaking engagements.
Yeah, that's.
It's too much, and so I'm much pickier about what I choose now. And so like
I
there,
guess it depends on the speaking engagement, though. Like this could be a speaking engagement,
it
right?
would count, yes,
So,
but
but like traveling somewhere and
it travels.
getting in front of 1,000, 1,500, 5,000 people, like
Mhm.
that's a different prep altogether,
Yes,
right?
yes, yep.
So, I mean,
So yeah, I'll be
go
doing
ahead.
PyTexas. I will be going to Start East again. I'm giving all my workshops, my BDD workshops, my Playwright workshop, and this time I'll be giving a PyTest workshop.
Awesome, man.
Mhm. In mid May, I will be speaking at DevOps Days Baltimore, which I'm originally from Baltimore, born and raised. And so my hometown does a DevOps Days thing. Heck yeah, I'm going to be there. So that's exciting. I was going to be at DevOps Days Raleigh, but unfortunately they had to cancel that event because they could not get sponsors. That one hurt because
Have
it's
you
like, no.
have you been to those before?
Oh, yes. DevOps Days Raleigh is awesome
Yeah. You
because we
get
have so much tech and software here. It's actually a pretty big event.
we get I mean, I was at the one in Dallas I don't know, probably 4 or 5 months ago. We
Nice.
we get a pretty good crowd for
Yeah.
the one in Dallas. So,
Yep. And I really love how the DevOps Days events structure their conferences. They have a good mix of, the short talks, the long talks, the workshops, as well as their
yeah.
open spaces.
I like the short talks too, right? I don't like the big, just the big. I mean,
Hmm.
the big conversations are nice. It's okay to have like a keynote or something like that. It's okay, but I like the short talks of, hey, this is what we're doing,
Hmm.
um, and just quick, and then okay, move off to the next one. I think that encourages more people to share their stories,
Hmm.
and it's not as I don't know the right word to say for it. It's not as I don't know. It just brings the bar up in the conversations, and it
Yes.
and it lowers the hesitancy of people to get involved. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah, I really like it when they do that, and I think they did that at the last DevOps in Dallas too. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I really like that conference. It's
Yes.
really cool. It's good to hear you're going to at least two of them.
Well, this
So
year one, but
I don't know
normal
how many of those do they have.
a ton. Like any any mid to large size city probably has a DevOps Days event, and they're format wise they all swap notes, so they're all very similar. Yep, I've been to the one in Raleigh before. I've been to the one in Baltimore before. I'm going to the one in Baltimore this year.
Yeah, and the other thing is that if you go to the test conferences, you see it's the same people over
Yeah,
and over and over
yeah,
and over again,
yes.
and you do see some test people in the DevOps, uh,
Hmm.
but mostly it's a whole new it's a whole new crowd, right?
Exactly,
So
exactly.
and a whole new set of tools, right? So
Hmm. Yeah,
uh,
the nice thing about testing is that those skills are very transferable to other areas, and
yeah,
so it's very easy for us as quote unquote testers to go crash a developer conference, a DevOps conference, pick your programming stack conference. very easy for us to enter those areas.
All right. Well, anything else you want to talk about, Andy?
Oh man, I mean, I could go all day, but it's all right.
All
We'll
right,
just have to
brother.
have another episode.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, man. And I look forward to seeing what your next updates are.
Indeed.
And
Thank you.
all
Appreciate
right,
it.
brother. Take care.